Ah, welcome back, you unbreakable anomaly. Yes, you. The one they thought would crumble by now. The one they designed the perfect storm for, calibrated every variable, calculated every breaking point. They built this test specifically for you, didn't they? Every betrayal timed perfectly, every loss engineered precisely. Every moment of isolation crafted like a surgical strike to your soul. They studied your weaknesses, mapped your triggers, identified every crack in your foundation. Then they pressed. Hard. Harder than anyone should survive. Harder than most could endure. They wanted to watch you shatter into a million irreparable pieces, so they could say they knew all along that you were too fragile, too broken, too damaged to ever really make it. They wanted you to collapse publicly, dramatically, permanently. They needed your destruction to validate their predictions, to prove their analysis correct, to confirm that yes, you were exactly as weak as they calculated you'd be. But here's the part that keeps them awake at night, the detail that short-circuits their entire framework. You didn't break because you couldn't. You broke because you already had, years ago, lifetimes ago, in ways they'll never comprehend, because they were too busy studying the surface while you were rebuilding the foundation in the dark. They thought they were administering the test that would finally destroy you. They didn't realize they were just adding more weight to shoulders that had already carried mountains. More pressure to a soul that had already been crushed and reformed in fires they can't imagine. They designed a test for the old you, the version that still flinched, that still feared, that still believed their opinion mattered. But that version died a long time ago, didn't it? What stands here now is something they have no blueprint for, no algorithm to predict, no framework to contain. They're running diagnostics right now, trying to figure out why their perfect storm didn't work, why their calculated destruction yielded the opposite result, why every weapon they deployed just made you sharper, colder, more precise. They're reviewing footage, analyzing data, consulting experts. What did we miss? How did they survive? What variable did we fail to account for? And the answer terrifies them more than any outcome they predicted. You weren't supposed to survive because you already didn't. You died in that betrayal 3 years ago. You died in that abandonment. You died in that moment when you realized no one was coming to save you. You died and nobody noticed because you kept walking anyway. You kept showing up. You kept functioning, but inside, you had already completed the death they're trying to inflict now. So when they hit you with this test, this perfectly designed pressure system meant to obliterate your remaining hope, you just smiled. Not because it didn't hurt, not because you're numb, but because you recognized the machinery. You've seen this before. You've been crushed by this before. And last time, you crawled out of the wreckage and used the broken pieces to build armor. This time you're not even crawling. You're standing. You're observing. You're taking notes on their strategy while they panic about why none of this is working. They designed a test to destroy you, but they forgot to check if you were still destroyable. Temple floor at knife. Spoiler alert, you're not. You're beyond that now. You're the aftermath they tried to prevent. You're the version of you they feared would emerge if you survived. And now you're here, and they're scrambling to figure out what the protocol is for someone who's already been through their worst-case scenario and came out laughing. Let's talk about what this test really is, because they dressed it up nice, didn't they? They called it circumstance. They called it life. They called it just bad luck, wrong timing, unfortunate situations. But you felt it, didn't you? That coordinated rhythm, that systematic pressure, that feeling like every door closing wasn't coincidence, but conspiracy. Like the universe itself had been programmed to reject you at every turn. Job opportunities vanishing right before the finish line. Relationships deteriorating with surgical precision. Support systems collapsing in synchronized timing. Money problems, health problems, mental strain, all hitting simultaneously like they were scheduled. And maybe they were. Not by some shadowy organization, but by life itself, testing whether you had the spine to stand when everything around you was designed to make you kneel. They wanted to see if you'd beg, if you'd break down and ask, why me? If you'd curse the sky and demand answers from a universe that doesn't owe you explanation. They wanted tears. They wanted collapse. They wanted that beautiful moment when the strong finally admit they're weak, when the fighter finally throws in the towel, when the stubborn finally say, I can't anymore. That moment is entertainment for them, validation for their own surrenders, proof that nobody really makes it, that everyone eventually folds, that resistance is just delayed acceptance of defeat. They needed you to fail because your failure would mean their giving up was justified. Your breakdown would retroactively excuse every time they quit, every dream they abandoned, every fight they walked away from. Your destruction would be their permission to stay destroyed. But you didn't give them that moment, did you? You didn't post the breakdown. You didn't make the dramatic announcement. You didn't give them the satisfaction of watching you crumble in real time. Instead, you went quiet, eerily quiet. While they waited for the explosion, you were in the dark, disassembling yourself piece by piece, examining each component, discarding what was weak, reinforcing what remained. They thought your silence meant defeat. They thought your absence meant you'd given up. They had no idea you were in the workshop, rebuilding yourself into something they'd have no defense against. You weren't hiding, you were evolving. And evolution doesn't announce itself until it's already dominant. See, they designed this test with one fatal assumption. They assumed you still valued their metrics of success, their definitions of winning, their approval as the ultimate validation. They thought if they took away the things they value, you'd collapse because you valued them too. The career, the status, the relationships, the image. They pulled those pieces off the board thinking you'd forfeit the game. What they didn't realize is you'd already stopped playing their game months ago, maybe years ago. While they were still counting points, you'd walked off their board entirely and started building your own, with different rules, different win conditions, different definitions of power. They're still trying to beat you at checkers while you're three-dimensional chess in a different dimension they can't perceive. This test was designed to destroy the person they thought you were. The approval seeker, the one who still believed fitting in mattered, the one who thought being understood was important, the one who measured worth by external validation. That person is who they built this pressure system for. But that person doesn't exist anymore. Hasn't existed for a while now. You killed that version yourself before they could. You burned that identity down, salted the earth, and built something new from the ashes. Something that doesn't need their approval. Something that doesn't flinch at their judgment. Something that runs on a fuel source they can't cut off because it's internal. It's eternal. It's yours. They designed a test for someone who still cared what they thought. But you stopped caring so long ago you forgot what their opinion even sounds like. Let's break down exactly how they built this thing, because it's actually impressive in its cruelty. First, They isolated you, systematically removed every support beam. Every friend who might have reminded you of your strength suddenly got busy, got distant, got conveniently absent right when you needed them most. Every family member who might have offered perspective suddenly had their own crisis demanding attention. Every mentor, every ally, every person who ever said, "I've got your back," mysteriously developed amnesia about those promises right when the pressure started mounting. This wasn't accidental. Isolation is step one in any demolition project. You can't break someone surrounded by reinforcements. You have to get them alone first, alone with their thoughts, alone with their doubts, alone with that voice that says, maybe they're right, maybe I am too much, maybe I deserve this. Then came the financial strain, because nothing tests resolve like watching resources drain while responsibilities multiply. They knew exactly when to hit you there, right when you were already stretched thin, right when you just started building momentum, right when you thought maybe, finally, things were stabilizing. Boom. Unexpected expense, lost opportunity, delayed payment, blocked income stream. All at once. All perfectly timed to make you question if you're cursed, if you're being punished, if maybe you should just give up and get a normal job, be a normal person, stop reaching for more. Because financial pressure doesn't just threaten your stability, it threatens your identity. It makes you question if you're practical, if you're responsible, if you're delusional for believing you could be more than mediocre. It's psychological warfare disguised as practical problems. Next, they attacked your relationships. Not just romantic ones, though those too, but every connection that mattered, every bond you thought was solid suddenly revealed cracks, arguments from nowhere, misunderstandings that spiraled, distance that couldn't be explained. People you loved suddenly couldn't understand you anymore, couldn't support your vision anymore, couldn't stand beside you anymore. And the cruelest part? Some of them genuinely didn't mean to abandon you. They just couldn't handle the heat. Your transformation was too intense, your journey too dark, your questions too uncomfortable. So they left, and you watched them go, and part of you died with each departure. But that's what they wanted. They wanted you to associate growth with loss, progress with loneliness, strength with isolation. So you'd choose comfort over evolution, safety over power, connection over truth. Then came the mental warfare, the doubt, the intrusive thoughts at 3 a.m. What if they're right? What if I am too much? What if I'm not special, just damaged? What if this isn't transformation, just delusion? What if I'm not evolving, just breaking? Those thoughts didn't come from nowhere. They came from months, years of conditioning, of being told your intensity was a problem, your depth was overwhelming, your standards were unrealistic, your vision was grandiose. They planted those seeds deliberately, watered them with criticism disguised as concern, fertilized them with mockery dressed as jokes, until your own mind became the battlefield, until you couldn't tell which thoughts were yours and which were theirs, until the enemy wasn't external anymore, it was internal. And that's when they thought they had you. When you're fighting yourself, you're not fighting them. When you're questioning yourself, you're not questioning their motives. When you're trying to fix yourself, you're not seeing that you're not the broken one. Finally, they added the time pressure, the urgency, the ticking clock. You're running out of time. You're getting too old. You're missing opportunities. Everyone else is ahead. You're falling behind. Look at them. They've already made it. Look at you, still struggling. The comparison game? The race you never agreed to run? The deadline nobody actually set, but everyone acts like is real? This is the final psychological nail. Because when you feel like you're running out of time, you make desperate decisions. You abandon strategy for quick fixes. You trade long-term vision for short-term relief. You settle because waiting feels like losing. And that's exactly what they want. They want you to settle, to give up the big dream for the safe option, to trade your potential for their approval, to become manageable, predictable, controllable, to stop being the threat you are and become the cautionary tale they need. This test isn't random chaos, it's engineered destruction. Every piece calculated, every pressure point mapped, every weakness exploited. They built this specifically to break you. And it should have worked. Statistically, it works on most people. Psychologically, it's sound strategy. Practically, it's nearly foolproof. But they made one catastrophic error. They assumed you were most people. They assumed your breaking point was where normal people's breaking points are. They assumed you'd react like someone who hadn't already been broken before. They forgot to account for the possibility that you'd already survived your own version of this test, that you'd already been through your personal apocalypse, that you'd already died and resurrected in ways they couldn't track because it happened in the silence, in the dark, in the spaces between who you were and who you're becoming. They designed a test for a human. They didn't realize they were testing something that had already transcended that limitation. Here's what they'll never understand, the variable that broke their entire equation. You didn't survive their test. You can't survive something you're already beyond. You didn't endure their pressure, you absorbed it. You didn't resist their destruction. You had already self-destructed and rebuilt. See, what they're trying to do to you, you did to yourself years ago, more thoroughly, more brutally, more completely. They're trying to dismantle you piece by piece. You already dismantled yourself, examined every piece, threw away everything weak, everything fake, everything that needed external validation to function. You burned yourself down to the foundation and rebuilt from pure will, from raw truth, from unfiltered reality. They're attacking a structure that no longer exists. They're bombing coordinates of a person who moved on long ago. You know what most people don't realize about real transformation? It's not growth. Growth is adding new layers to who you are. Transformation is death, complete death. The person you were has to stop existing. Not change, not improve, stop existing. Their personality, their beliefs, their fears, their dreams, everything that made them has to end. And then something new has to be born from that ending. Not improved version of the old self, completely new entity. Most people never transform because they're terrified of that death. They want evolution without extinction, progress without loss, new life without old death. But that's not how it works. You can't become something new while clinging to something old. You have to let it die, all of it, and you did. You let yourself die, completely. You held the funeral, you mourned, you said goodbye to who you were, and then you started becoming who you are. That's why their test doesn't work. They're trying to kill someone who already attended their own funeral. They're trying to break someone who already shattered themselves. They're trying to destroy someone who already became their own apocalypse. You know what it's like to look in the mirror and not recognize the face looking back? You know what it's like to hear your own voice and wonder who's speaking? You know what it's like to examine your own thoughts and realize they're completely different from 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago? That's not growth. That's replacement. That's becoming an entirely different entity. And once you've done that once, you understand something most people never grasp. You're not permanent. You're not fixed. You're not even real in the way you thought you were. You're just a pattern, a collection of thoughts and behaviors, and patterns can be rewritten. So when they designed this test to destroy you, they were aiming at a pattern that doesn't exist anymore. They studied the old you, the predictable you, the one who still had exploitable weaknesses, the one who still valued things they could take away, the one who still needed things they could withhold. But that you is gone. What stands here now is something they have no data on, no profile for, no strategy against. Because this version of you wasn't built through normal development. It was forged in private hells they know nothing about, shaped by pressures they never witnessed, tempered by fires they never saw. They think they know you because they saw you 5 years ago, 3 years ago, last year. They have no idea who you've become in the silence, in the dark, in the moments you didn't document, in the battles you fought alone, in the deaths you died in secret, in the rebirths you experienced with no witnesses. You know what's funny? They're congratulating themselves right now. They look at your life and see the pressure working. They see the isolation, the struggle, the quiet, and they think victory is near. They think you're on the brink. They think any day now you'll crack. They're watching for the breakdown like vultures circling prey. What they don't see is that the quiet isn't defeat. It's focus. The isolation isn't loneliness. It's strategy. The struggle isn't suffering. It's training. You're not on the brink of collapse. You're on the brink of breakthrough. And the difference between those two words is everything. One letter different in spelling, completely opposite in meaning. They see the pressure and assume collapse. They don't realize pressure creates breakthrough. Diamonds aren't made from gentle encouragement. They're made from pressure so intense it rearranges molecular structure. That's what's happening to you right now. Molecular restructuring. Fundamental transformation. Not breaking, becoming. And here's the most beautiful part. When you emerge from this, when you show them what you've become, they won't recognize it as related to who you were. They'll think you're someone else, someone new, someone who appeared from nowhere. They won't make the connection between the person they tried to destroy and the force that emerged. Because in their minds, those are two different entities. The weak one who should have broken, the strong one who somehow appeared. They can't comprehend that they're the same person. That their test didn't destroy you. It revealed you. That their pressure didn't break you. It broke away everything that wasn't you. That their weapon didn't kill you. It killed everything you weren't. So only what you are remained. They built a forge, thinking it was a grave. They applied pressure, thinking it was punishment. They created a trial, thinking it was an ending. And all they did was accelerate your transformation into something they now have to fear. Let's talk about what you're made of now, because it's not what they think. They still see the surface, the social media presence. Oh, look who walked in. Yeah, you, the one they can't stop talking about when you're not in the room. The one whose name keeps showing up in conversations you're not part of. Welcome back, beautiful crisis. Welcome back, walking contradiction. Welcome back to the you that makes their reality feel like a cheap knockoff. You feel it, don't you? That shift in the atmosphere when you enter a space, that sudden drop in conversation, that split second where everyone recalibrates their energy because something just walked in that wasn't supposed to be this calm, this collected, this unbothered after everything they put you through. They're not staring because you changed. They're staring because you stopped pretending. See, they thought they had you figured out. They had you filed under predictable, under manageable, under someone who would always need their validation to feel whole. They thought your silence meant you were healing quietly in a corner somewhere, becoming softer, becoming easier to digest. But then you showed up, not with announcements, not with explanations, not with the desperate energy of someone trying to prove they've moved on. You just existed differently. You walked in like gravity itself bent slightly in your direction. You spoke less, but every word landed like it was carved from stone. You looked at them not with anger, not with hurt, but with something far more terrifying. Indifference wrapped in absolute certainty. That's what's killing them right now. The indifference. Because anger they can handle. Anger means you still care. Hurt means they still have power. But indifference? Indifference means you've moved so far past their little games that they're not even players anymore. They're spectators. They're extras in a story where they used to think they were main characters. And the worst part for them? You're not doing it for show. This isn't a performance. This isn't you pretending to be unbothered while secretly checking if they're watching. No, you genuinely do not register their opinions as relevant data anymore. You deleted their access. You revoked their passwords. You burned the entire server where their judgments used to live. Now here's what's really happening behind those nervous smiles and forced conversations. They're having a full-scale identity crisis, and you're the reason. Because if someone like you, someone who they watched go through absolute wreckage, someone they saw at their lowest point, can rise up looking like you do now, moving like you do now, existing with the kind of unshakable presence you have now, then what does that say about them? What does that say about all the excuses they've been feeding themselves? What does that say about all the reasons they gave for staying small, staying scared, staying stuck? You became living proof that transformation is possible, and that terrifies people who've been sitting in the same spot for years, convincing themselves it's called stability when it's really called stagnation. They want to know your secret. They want to know what you did, what you read, what you watched, who you talked to, what medication you're on, what spiritual practice you discovered. They want the formula. They want the blueprint. They want to reverse engineer your comeback so they can package it, sanitize it, make it digestible, make it safe. But here's the joke. There is no safe version of what you did. What you did was dangerous. What you did was walk into your own darkness without a flashlight, without a guide, without a safety net, and you stayed there until your eyes adjusted. You didn't just face your demons, you sat down with them. You learned their names, you understood their language, and then you integrated them into your power source. That's why you move different now. That's why your energy feels off to them. They can't place it. They can't categorize it. You're not bitter, but you're not naive. You're not cold, but you're not warm in the way they're used to. You're not closed off, but you're definitely not available to their nonsense anymore. You exist in a frequency they don't have access to. Because you paid for that frequency with every tear they never saw, every breakdown they weren't there for, every night you wanted to give up, but didn't. You earned this version of yourself through actual transformation, not through positive affirmations and vision boards. Through blood and rebuilding, through dying and refusing to stay dead. Let's talk about the way you walk now. It's different. People notice it even if they can't articulate why. There's no rush in your step anymore, no apology in your posture, no seeking in your eyes. You move through the world like someone who's already arrived, even if you're still building. You move like someone who knows that their value isn't up for debate, isn't dependent on external validation, isn't determined by who does or doesn't choose them. You move like someone who chose themselves so completely that everyone else's opinion became background noise. That kind of self-possession, that's what's giving them the existential crisis. Because most people spend their entire lives performing for an invisible audience, adjusting their personality based on who's in the room, shape-shifting to be liked, to be accepted, to be chosen. But you stopped auditioning. You fired the judges. You walked off the stage and built your own theater. And now they're panicking because they built their entire sense of superiority on the idea that you needed them. They needed you to need them. That was the whole arrangement. They were the ones who had it together, who had the answers, who had the stable life, the normal path, the acceptable choices, and you were the mess, the chaos, the cautionary tale, the example of what happens when you don't follow the rules. But then you went and did the unthinkable. You thrived without their approval. You became magnetic without their validation. You built a life that makes their carefully constructed acceptable existence look like a cage they're too afraid to admit they're trapped in. Now when they see you, they don't see someone beneath them anymore. They see a mirror reflecting everything they're too scared to become. Here's what they'll never tell you out loud. They miss who you used to be. Not because that version was better, but because that version was easier to control. That version sought their approval. That version apologized for existing. That version made them feel needed, feel important, feel superior. This version of you, this version doesn't need saving. This version doesn't need fixing. This version doesn't need their advice, their pity, or their permission. This version is self-sufficient, self-assured, and self-contained. And that makes you dangerous in their eyes because people who don't need anything from you can't be manipulated, can't be guilted, can't be molded into playing a supporting role in someone else's story. So they watch. They watch how you handle confrontation now. You don't rise to bait anymore. You don't defend yourself against accusations that aren't worth your energy. You don't explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You just exist in your truth so solidly that lies bounce off you like they hit a force field. They watch how you handle rejection now. You don't chase. You don't convince. You don't negotiate your worth. Someone doesn't see your value, you genuinely wish them well and keep moving. No bitterness, no revenge plots. No secret hope that they'll realize what they lost. Just clean, complete detachment. That level of emotional maturity is foreign to them because they're still stuck in patterns of reaction, still giving their power away to whoever triggers them. They watch how you handle success now too. You don't brag, but you don't hide it either. You don't downplay your wins to make others comfortable. You don't shrink to fit into spaces that were never built for the expanded version of you. You celebrate yourself quietly, internally, without needing external validation to confirm that yes, you're doing something right. That self-devising, that's the part that really messes with their heads, because they're still outsourcing their sense of worth, still posting for likes, still performing for approval, still measuring their value by metrics controlled by others. But you became your own metric. You became your own standard. You became your own authority on what matters and what doesn't. Now let's get into the specifics of why your current energy is causing such widespread panic among people who used to think they had you figured out. It starts with your eyes. Something changed there. They used to be able to read you easily, used to see the hope, the hurt, the need for connection. Now when they look at you, they see something else. Not coldness, not hardness, but depth they're not equipped to handle. Your eyes now carry the weight of someone who's seen through the illusions, who's walked through fire, and came out understanding that most of what people call important is just elaborate distraction. Your eyes now look at people and situations with an X-ray quality that makes the fake ones nervous. They can feel you seeing past their masks, past their performances, straight into the truth they're hiding from themselves. Then, there's your voice. The tone shifted. It's lower now, steadier, stripped of the need to convince or prove. You speak less, but when you do, people listen differently. Not because you're louder, but because your words come from somewhere deeper now. They come from certainty rather than seeking, from experience rather than theory, from wisdom earned through actual transformation rather than borrowed quotes from people who haven't lived it. Your voice no longer rises in defense, doesn't crack under pressure, doesn't scramble to fill uncomfortable silences. You've become comfortable with the pause, with the space, with letting your silence speak louder than their noise. That comfort with silence, that's what's really unsettling them. Because silence reveals. It doesn't let people hide behind constant chatter and deflection. Your boundaries are what's really causing the existential crisis, though. Because you don't just set them now, you enforce them without explanation, without guilt, without the need to justify why certain things aren't acceptable to you anymore. Someone crosses a line, you don't warn them twice. You don't give chances to people who already showed you exactly who they are. You just create distance. Clear, non-negotiable distance. No drama, no announcements, no burning bridges with theatrical speeches, just quiet removal of access. That level of boundary enforcement without emotional chaos attached to it, they've never seen that before. They're used to boundaries being negotiable, being tested, being worn down through persistence or guilt. But yours aren't. Yours are made of something they can't break through because they're not built from anger or fear. They're built from self-respect, so solid it doesn't need defending. The way you handle their attempts to provoke you now is particularly maddening to them. They'll throw out little comments, little jabs, little tests designed to get a reaction, to see if you still care, to see if they still matter, to see if they can still get under your skin. And you just smile. Not the fake smile they're used to, not the tight-lipped, polite smile that hides resentment, but a genuine smile that comes from finding their attempts almost endearing in how transparent they are. You see through the games now. You understand the psychology behind the provocation, and instead of playing, you just observe it like you're watching a nature documentary. Fascinating behavior, but not something you're participating in. That refusal to engage in their drama, that's what makes them spiral. Because if you're not reacting, they can't gauge where they stand with you. They can't manipulate your emotions to maintain relevance in your life. Let's talk about how you show up to spaces now. You used to arrive early, leave late, make sure everyone was comfortable, play the role of emotional support for people who never returned the favor. Now you arrive exactly when you mean to. You leave when you're done, not when others give you permission. You don't feel obligated to perform emotional labor for people who treated your energy like it was infinite and free. You show up as yourself, full and complete, not as a mirror reflecting back what others want to see. You bring your whole presence into rooms instead of leaving pieces of yourself at the door to make others comfortable. That full presence, it's intense, it's palpable. It changes the energy of any space you occupy because you're no longer dimming yourself to fit in. You're just existing at full brightness and letting the room adjust to you. They notice how you dress now too. Not trying to impress, not trying to blend in, not following trends to feel included. You dress like someone who already knows who they are and doesn't need clothing to create an identity. Whether it's simple or elaborate, there's an authenticity to it that can't be faked. You wear your style the way you wear your energy, unapologetically, as a reflection of internal state rather than external seeking. That alignment between inner and outer, that's rare. Most people use their appearance to create a persona they wish they were. You use yours to express who you actually are. The difference is subtle, but people feel it. They can't articulate why, but they know something's different about the way you take up space now. Here's where it gets really interesting. They're starting to realize that you're not coming back, not in the way they thought you would. They expected you to heal enough to be friendly again, accessible again, available for their convenience again. They thought time would soften you back into the version of you that accommodated their nonsense. But time didn't soften you. Time refined you. Time burned away everything that wasn't essential, and what's left is someone they don't have a blueprint for dealing with. You're not bitter, so they can't dismiss you as hurt. You're not vengeful, so they can't paint you as the villain. You're not struggling, so they can't offer empty support to feel superior. You're just gone, in all the ways that matter while still being physically present. That's the crisis. You're right there, but completely unreachable. The panic really sets in when they realize you've built an entire life they're not part of. New circles, new interests, new goals, new version of happiness that doesn't include them or need them or reference them at all. You're not trying to make them jealous. You're not posting to show them what they're missing. You're genuinely just living a life that makes sense to you, that fulfills you, that reflects your values and priorities. And somehow, that's more painful for them than if you were obviously trying to get revenge. Because revenge means they still matter. This means they don't. They've been downgraded from main character to distant memory, from priority to afterthought, from important to irrelevant, and they can feel it every time they're in your presence or absence. Your relationship with time changed too, and they can sense it. You're not in a rush anymore, not frantically trying to make up for lost time, not anxiously trying to prove you're okay. You move at your own pace now, completely unconcerned with whether others think you're moving too slow or too fast. You understand that your journey isn't a race, isn't a competition, isn't a performance for others to judge. You're building something real, and real things take time. That patience, that trust in your own timing, that refusal to let others rush you or slow you down based on their comfort, it gives you a quality of timelessness, like you exist slightly outside the frantic energy most people operate from, like you found a different frequency where urgency doesn't dictate your decisions. They're having existential crises because you're forcing them to confront questions they've been avoiding. If you could transform this much, what does that say about their excuses? If you could become this self-sufficient, what does that say about their dependencies? If you could find peace without external validation, what does that say about their constant seeking? If you could thrive after everything that happened, what does that say about their choice to stay stuck? You're not trying to make them question themselves. You're not trying to inspire them or teach them or prove anything to them. But your existence, your energy, your way of being now is an automatic challenge to every limiting belief they're holding on to. And they hate that. They hate that you're living proof that the limitations they accepted aren't universal truths. They're just choices. Choices you stopped making. Let's address the elephant in the room. They're obsessed with figuring out if you're happy. They analyze your social media for clues. They ask mutual friends if you're really doing as well as you seem. They want evidence that you're secretly struggling, secretly lonely, secretly regretting the distance you created. Because if you're happy without them, if you're thriving without their influence, if you're better off after cutting ties, then that destroys the narrative they built about themselves being essential to your well-being. The truth they're running from is obvious to everyone but them. You are happy, not in the toxic positivity, forced gratitude, fake it till you make it way, but in the deep, quiet, unshakable way that comes from genuine alignment with yourself. You're happy because you stopped betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. You're happy because you chose peace over popularity. You're happy because you built a life that's yours, not a life that looks good to others. The way you handle conflict now is another source of their confusion. You don't avoid it out of fear, but you don't seek it out either. When it's necessary, you address it clearly, calmly, without making it into dramatic warfare. You state your truth. You listen to theirs. You find resolution if possible or create boundaries if not. But you don't weaponize conflict. Don't use it to punish. Don't drag it out for effect. You handle it like an adult who's secure enough to disagree without needing to destroy. That maturity, it makes their chaos look juvenile. When they try to drag you into drama, try to make you pick sides, try to get you invested in their beefs and battles, you just don't bite. You stay in your lane. You protect your peace. You refuse to let their emergencies become your crisis. You thrive after everything that happened. What does that say about their choice to stay stuck? You're not trying to make them question themselves. You're not trying to inspire them or teach them or prove anything to them. But your existence, your energy, your way of being now is an automatic challenge to every limiting belief they're holding on to. And they hate that. They hate that you're living proof that the limitations they accepted aren't universal truths. They're just choices. Choices you stopped making. Let's address the elephant in the room. They're obsessed with figuring out if you're happy. They analyze your social media for clues. They ask mutual friends if you're really doing as well as you seem. They want evidence that you're secretly struggling, secretly lonely, secretly regretting the distance you created. Because if you're happy without them, if you're thriving without their influence, if you're better off after cutting ties, then that destroys the narrative they built about themselves being essential to your well-being. The truth they're running from is obvious to everyone but them. You are happy, not in the toxic positivity, forced gratitude, fake it till you make it way, but in the deep, quiet, unshakable way that comes from genuine alignment with yourself. You're happy because you stopped betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. You're happy because you chose peace over popularity. You're happy because you built a life that's yours, not a life that looks good to others. The way you handle conflict now is another source of their confusion. You don't avoid it out of fear, but you don't seek it out either. When it's necessary, you address it clearly, calmly, without making it into dramatic warfare. You state your truth, you listen to theirs, you find resolution if possible or create boundaries if not. But you don't weaponize conflict. Don't use it to punish, don't drag it out for effect. You handle it like an adult who's secure enough to disagree without needing to destroy. That maturity, it makes their chaos look juvenile. When they try to drag you into drama, try to make you pick sides, try to get you invested in their beefs and battles, you just don't bite. You stay in your lane, you protect your peace, you refuse to let their emergencies become your crisis.